I've been playing Shin Megami Tensei games for multiple years now. This series holds a very special place in my heart. The fourth mainline installment in this series is up there as one of my favorite games of all time. When Shin Megami Tensei 4 Final was announced on the October 2015 issue of weekly magazine Famitsu in Japan, I was ecstatic. It took a while for me to finally play it after release due to personal circumstances, but I got the chance to finally play it now for the first time. Today, I am reviewing the sequel to my Game of the Year of 2013. I am reviewing Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse is indeed a sequel to SMT4. Everything is happening following the events of the neutral ending of its predecessor. Now, if you look at it that way, there's some inconsistencies which brings some of the fandom to believe it's happening in an alternate timeline from 4. From my understanding, there's no official confirmation of where this is all going. As always with my review, I'll give a brief summary of the stories without any spoilers. As soon as I'm done with the story sections, I will let you know if you must play Shin Megami Tensei 4 before playing Apocalypse or not, since I know this is a question that you guys might have if you never played it. In Apocalypse, Flynn, Isabeau, Navarre, and others are returning characters from Shin Megami Tensei 4. You play as a brand new character, Nanashi. Flynn is a samurai from the Eastern Kingdom of Mikado, while Nanashi is a hunter from Kinshincho. When you start the game, due to unfortunate situations, you have to become a hunter very quickly, but it feels natural. A couple hours in your playthrough, you die. Yeah, Nanashi dies. And this is where you meet Dagda, a demon who offers you a contract to bring you back to life. And this is where it all begins. I'll be really honest, the first 10 hours of this game story-wise is extremely weirdly paced and doesn't feel too natural. Actually, it doesn't feel natural at all. It feels really forced. Again, without spoiling anything, after this first 10 hours, a war explodes in Tokyo. Lucifer and the Ashuakai, Merkaba and the samurai of the Eastern Kingdom of Mikado, Krishna and the Divine Powers, and Flynn and the Hunters of Tokyo are all entering a massive war. That's common knowledge. They showed that in the trailers. You, as the protagonist, end up in the middle of this war, and you have to forge your own path of where you want to be in this massive war. It takes a bit of time before the story really picks up, but once it does, it is honestly really amazing. The story heads in all sort of unexpected directions, and I really like that. That being said, again, the first 10 hours is paced in a very weird way, and it shows. I still think it's worth playing through it for the other 30 hours, which are amazing. In Apocalypse, the game really tries to push you towards a neutral path, and it really shows. Now, for those of you who don't know, in Shin Megami Tensei game, there is always an alignment system where you can either have a neutral ending, a chaos ending, or a law ending, depending on your choices and actions. In Apocalypse, they put a big emphasis on neutral, and it really shows. It's not really a bad thing in my opinion, and this path is extremely fun to go through, and it feels like natural choices. Never did I feel like I was forced to do the choices that I was doing in my playthrough, because this is what I felt like doing, but it was very obvious which choice they wanted you to pick. Now, do you have to play Shin Megami Tensei 4 before playing Apocalypse? I would say no, you don't have to. The game explains its plot very well to you, and I'm sure a newcomer to SMT4 in general will understand the story easily. On the other hand, I highly recommend playing 4 before, because you will get a ton of fan service and references that I really liked, that I feel like are a really nice touch. I think you will feel way more invested in the situation at hand because you already know and love some of the characters that are introduced to you. Some of the cool moments that I love as a massive Shin Megami Tensei 4 fan is when you meet some of the characters and revisit certain locations. Like the Eastern Kingdom of Mikado, for example, which changed quite a bit. It felt kind of nostalgic and I liked it. I, of course, cannot talk about the story without talking about the characters in the game. In Apocalypse, you meet your new party members, your new friends throughout your playthrough. At the end of the game, you have a massive roster. Now, the characters in this game are where it starts to get problematic. Most of the characters are not likable at all. Asahi and Toki are bland characters. Their sole purpose is to be part of this unnecessary love triangle with the main character. Toki had some importance at some point in the story, but that doesn't change the fact that she was cringe from A to Z. Asahi was very childish and I didn't care at first. I thought it would get better, but it doesn't. She's a crybaby from the beginning until the end. That kind of threw me off the experience at times. Now there's still some characters that are interesting in your party. Interesting, not amazing. Navarre had more screen time than in 4, and I like how they expanded on his kind of shitty personality from the first game. Gaston, Navarre's brother, is a really good character. I really like how he evolved from being a stupid jerk to a friend near the end of the story. Nozomi is a character that you encounter really soon in the game, and honestly, I just don't care for her. Again, another unnecessary character. Hallelujah is one that I really liked. Great character development, and unlike some of its companions, it feels like he deserves his place in the main party. Overall, I'd say this game's characters brought the experience down a notch for me. You're in a war, it's supposed to be a very serious setting, not a humor or love show, and I found myself asking me, are we really at war right now? Why are we fighting over some stupid thing? Overall, I just feel like the tone and the general idea behind the dialogues between the characters is just really out of place. But hey, I still enjoyed the story overall since this overarching plot made up for the characters that I didn't care for. It shows how great this story is. Now I do want to talk about the presentation a bit for Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse. Let's start with the visuals. So SMT4 Apocalypse is running on the same engine as SMT4 and is reusing most of the models, and it shows. SMT4 was a beautiful game back in 2013, and Apocalypse, unsurprisingly, is also a very beautiful running game on the 3DS. The cutscenes and the way that they're designed are beautiful on this little handheld. Now when it comes to the art direction, some of the new demons from this game were designed by Masayuki Doi, and I personally really like his style. It's kind of different from Kaneko, which he's also very talented, but I thought that was kind of refreshing as well. Note that Doi designed new demons as well as the character designs, but he didn't touch all the older demons design, which some of them are from Kaneko. Speaking of art direction, I just gotta mention quickly a very minor complaint of mine. Almost all the armors that you can wear in Apocalypse are ugly. Not a deal breaker, but I wonder why that was the case, as I had no issue with that in 4. Now let's talk about the gameplay in Apocalypse. The gameplay is very similar to that of its predecessor. You explore Tokyo, completing missions given to you by the Hunter Association. When you want to do side quests, you will enter demon domains or hunt specific demons in certain locations. The side content is unnecessary and feels a bit bland in my opinion. I think the side quests in 4 were way more original as they added a ton of new locations and bosses to fight between story missions. Demon domains were something that I adored in SMT4. They're back in Apocalypse, but there's way less. I don't have the exact number, but I know that there's a ton in SMT4 and not a lot in Apocalypse. That being said, Apocalypse deserves a ton of credit from me because it added a ton of quality of life improvements, which I adored. There's way too many of them for me to list all of them, but here's a few that I liked. First up is additions on the world map. The world map and exploration in general is way better in my opinion. They added names to the locations on the map in Tokyo. That was very much appreciated as it was very easy to get lost in SMT4. Now in Apocalypse, you pull out your map and you know where you have to go. I've heard some people, most are longtime fans of the series, mention that this is negative, that they don't want to have the location places on the map because they like to get lost and end up in some type of random demon domain. And honestly, I can see that. I can understand the appeal there. For me personally, I'd rather know where I want to go and explore other places when I have the time to, between missions for example, and still know where to go when I have one specific goal. But that being said, if they had this feature in SMT5, I hope they give the player the choice of adding the names of the locations on the map or turn it off. That would be an easy thing to do and it would please everyone. Another quality of life feature, or actually kind of a great feature that I really like that they added, is the addition of a partner in battle that you can choose. As I mentioned earlier, you have a few party members in Apocalypse, unlike in 4 where you only add 3 partners. All of them for Apocalypse have a very distinct set of spells. Navarre is good for buffs, while Asahi, for example, is good for healing. It was not only really helpful, but it made for some more strategy, as you can decide who will be your partner before each battle. I think it was kind of ridiculous to have to reload your save file when you have Walter against the Minotaur in 4, for example. Because in this game, if you didn't know, in 4 you don't choose who's your partner, so it's random. It changes from battle to battle, which I personally didn't think that was an issue, but now that I played Apocalypse, I really liked that I could choose who's going to be my partner. That was a big help. and I hope they improve on this mechanic with future games. There is way more additions that make the gameplay in SMT4 Apocalypse the best that it's ever been in all of Megaton. In my opinion, I adored it from A to Z. The dungeons are fun to go through, other than the final dungeon. There's no stupid dungeon that are not fun at all, like in other Shin Megami Tensei games. The dungeon before the final one, which I'm not gonna name because it's spoilers territory, is probably my favorite dungeon, or close to my favorite dungeon in the entire series. Extremely pleasing to complete. There's one thing that I disliked about the dungeons though. There is this one thing where you randomly get trapped in dungeons and you have to spam click X to avoid being sent elsewhere. That felt completely unnecessary, out of place, and annoying. Again, another unnecessary thing that they added for no reason, which I really don't get. I don't feel like it adds anything to the gameplay. As in all the Megaton games, SMT4's Apocalypse music doesn't disappoint. Once again, we're greeted with a massive, large, and amazing soundtrack. SMT4 Apocalypse has some of the old tracks from 4, which are still as good as ever, but they also added some fantastic new tracks such as the Krishna team, which I liked, and the Kinshinsho team as well. I have zero complaint for the music. It's top tier. Overall, I'd say that SMT4 Apocalypse improved on the little issues that SMT4 had, but unfortunately was not able to top its predecessor in every way. Whether it's the story or the characters, SMT4 Apocalypse was not able to completely pull me in as SMT4 did. It had a lot to live up to, and despite its few flaws that we talked about today, it's still a very good game that I highly recommend playing if you enjoyed Shin Megami Tensei 4 on your Nintendo 3DS. I think they're going in a right direction after playing Apocalypse, and I hope Team Maniacs delivers with Shin Megami Tensei 5, giving us a combination of the good things that we longtime fans enjoyed from 4, and also some of the things that they added for new players in Apocalypse, which I think are also great. Now let's look at the comment of the day. The last comment is coming from Alex Mercado, who commented on the last video, which was Sakura Wars PS4 review, an overlooked gem from a legendary series, which was JRPG Gems Episode 2. And his comment goes like this: reasons this game didn't do as well. 1. Only on PS4. 2. No English dubs. 3. Released at the worst possible time. And to that, I have to say, you are right, Alex. I agree with everything that you mentioned, and I specifically agree on the third point. It released at the worst possible time because Sakura Wars released right after the release, right after Persona 5 Royal and FF7 Remake. Not a good move, Sega. Not a good move. Thank you for commenting, Alex. As always, if you want to be featured in the next video as a comment of the day, please drop a comment below and you get the chance to get featured on the next comment of the day section at the end of next video. Thank you all so much for listening to this review of Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse for the Nintendo 3DS. If you're interested in seeing more reviews for mainline Shin Megami Tensei or Persona or other SMT spin-offs, you're at the right place. Check out the description below for more videos, and if you're interested in more content on anything Atlas, Shin Megami Tensei, Persona, you are at the right place. Please consider subscribing and ring the little bell to never miss out on any new content. If you liked the review, a thumbs up helps a lot. If you didn't, dislike, and please let me know a comment down in the description below if you played SMT4 Apocalypse, if you liked it or not. I would really appreciate that. Thank you all so much for watching, and see you next time.